Penn State fans, it's time for yet another, yes, that's right, I said another edition of the Blue White Breakdown, Penn Live's Penn State Football Podcast. You know what that means. That means David Jones is here with us from his remote location in Downingtown. I've already seen his dog, Kaiser. I've been alerted to the fact that he's a little bit wound up today. So if you guys hear some weird sounds coming from Dave's microphone,
he's okay.
It's probably just Dave anyway. I'm Bob Flounders, and we're here to talk about the matchup Penn State-Ball State, and what we think is going to happen, some of the matchups, some of the questions that need to be answered. Sorry for the long intro, but we'll turn it over to Dave Jones. How are you?
I think your comforting voice has calmed down, Kaiser. He's lying quietly now next to me.
Big dogs and women, Dave. That's what I do. Big dogs and women. I calm them all down.
I thought it was dogs and big women.
I'm going to let that go. I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to be the bigger man, and we're going to move this. We're going to move this. I'm going to get you back at some point.
You know what made that funny, Bob? Is timing.
That's hard to transition away from that last comment, but I'm going to try. Dave, it's week 2. It's Ball State week. We talked a little bit earlier in the week about James Franklin's Tuesday news conference. Now we can get more specific about the game, some of the matchups as we tape this, either if you're watching it or listening to it. Penn State opened as a 20.5-point favorite. I saw it as high as 22 or 22.5. I think the over has moved up. It was somewhere, I think, in the low 50s. I think it might be in the mid 50s now. I don't know, Dave. You're the weather guy. I think it's going to be a nice day Saturday. 3:30 kick on FS1. First Beaver Stadium home game, Dave, I think since November of 2019.
Actually, I
meant for fans.
I have not looked at the weather, which is an upset for me at this point in the week. I have not, so I don't even know. I was thinking about this. Now, who do you need to game plan a game against a MAC team? I mean, there are people who know about the MAC, and who are these people?
You mean, are you talking about an independent advisor, or what are you talking about?
Somebody who can tell you about Ball State, for God's sakes. I mean,
you need Phil Steele.
No, well, I'm looking at Phil Steele, but what you need is a degenerate gambler. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Because
too bad we can't get Pickle on this podcast. He has it wired already. He picked Penn State. He picked Penn State to win the game last week.
Or any of about 40 of your friends.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, those are the games that they're always on Tuesday or Wednesday night, Thursday night before they get the NFL game rolling. And those are the guys who know about these teams. I'm not going to pretend that I've watched a lot of Ball State football. I haven't watched any. I don't think I've seen a Ball State game since I was covering the MAC in 1984, which was my very first college football coverage season. And I've been to Muncie, and I haven't been back.
Where is that? Just where are we talking about?
Oh my God! Let me just. I don't. It's the end of the earth. That's what it is. I actually went there for a basketball game. You remember a basketball? You probably don't remember this guy. His guy's name was Dan Palambizio.
I do not. I would remember a name like that.
Yeah. Well, he was a high-scoring, I mean, nationally ranked high-scoring, kind of a winger. The kind of guy who is too big to be sitting out on the arc, the kind of guy you hate when you play with him because he's just a black hole. The ball goes in but never comes out. One of those guys.
Yeah,
he was a volume.
It's like you in pickup basketball, Dave.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And you want him to just go inside and dominate because he's 6'6", but no, he's got to shoot jumpers. One of those guys. And he was a volume scorer for the Ball State Cardinals, and I went in there covering the Ohio Bobcats, coached by Danny Nee, and that was my only trip ever to Muncie in 1985.
Dan Palambizio? Did I hear that
Palambizio.
Right? And that might be the first Dan Palambizio reference in Pennsylvania podcast.
Every time he scored, the PA guy was before his time. He was like the guy at Chicago Stadium with the early Bulls who started this trend toward Dan Palambizio every time. And Ball State won the game, and they were in first place in the MAC for a little while, but then Dan went about 10 for 49 in his next game, and that was the end of them.
I don't think we did a little too much on him, Dave. I think we did a little too much on Palanese.
Yeah, probably. But I have tried to book up. You have too. I saw that your Justin Hall reference, correct?
Yeah.
In your little preview, you know, I have one thing I can depend on in this team's history, and that's that they beat a pretty good, always well-coached Buffalo team last year as a 14-point dog in the MAC championship game.
Yeah.
And the reason I know that's valuable is it was Lance Leipold's last game as the Buffalo coach. He's now at Kansas, which I think is an incredible hire for Kansas, because that guy, he's not very interesting to listen to. He's just one of those head down pluggers. And you watch, Kansas is going to start winning some games, maybe not this year, but next year and the year after. There'll be a slow build with those guys. He could be like the Bill Snyder was at Kansas State. Anyway, Ball State beat these guys as 14-point dogs. Let me see, 13-point dogs in the MAC championship game. And then they went out to got their first bowl win, beat up San Jose State, Dick Vermeil's old alma mater, and ended up number 23 in the country.
Yeah,
that's a considerable team. They were 7-1. That was their first bowl win ever. And out of nowhere, kind of out of ashes, Mike New has built a pretty good team. And this can.
They're all back. They're all back, Dave.
Yeah, Penn State's got to be able to be ready to play.
Yeah.
For this, do you remember the Buffalo game with Leipold a couple of years ago, where
it was close for about a half.
Yeah, it was very close for a half. I think it was tied at the half, wasn't it? And
it might have been ahead.
The Penn State fans booed the
Garrett Patterson now with the Redskins. Sure.
Yeah, booed the lines off the field at halftime, and then I think Penn State won 45-13.
Yeah,
it could be something like that. I mean, there's really no reason that Penn State shouldn't be able to control scrimmage on offense.
Yeah.
They barely got a sweat up in Madison. I think the ticket here is a boring ball control running game that consumes as many minutes as Wisconsin consumed in Madison and gives that defense a rest, because they just went through that crucible against Wisconsin, and now they're going to have to go through another one next week against Auburn. They need a rest. They need to play about 17 minutes, the defense, this week.
Dave, I think that in theory you are dead on, but this number just keeps jumping out at me. 367. That was the amount of passing yards that Ball State gave up last week to Western Illinois. And if you're Mike Yursich and you're looking at the tape of that game and you have Jahan Dotson and you have Parker Washington, Keandre Lambert-Smith looked pretty good last week, and you have an offensive line that I think you feel pretty better about pass protection this week. If you're Mike Yursich, I think you try and maybe throw the ball early and run the ball if you can get control of the game, because it looks like there are plays to be had. It's hard to give up that many yards. I think they had one receiver go for over 230 yards. So I don't know what the game plan is for them to stop Jahan Dotson, but it looks like Penn State should have, if they want to throw the ball, they should be able to throw the ball down the field on these guys as well.
Yeah, if Western Illinois can do that. By the way, who went to Western Illinois? Got two big names.
Well, I think Tony Romo went to Eastern Illinois.
Yeah, it's not Tony Romo. Two big names went
Western Illinois.
Yes. Give up.
Is it the sport of football?
Yes.
Is it recent?
Fairly. Yeah. One of them is very recent. Just
John Brockington. No, I know that's not true.
That was so random and arbitrary.
Harry Metcalf.
Brian Cox.
Oh yeah.
And Rodney Harris.
Ooh, two really nasty defensive players.
Yes.
Played a long time in the league.
So I don't think I don't think we have any guys like that on this defense. Apparently,
I don't. What are some of the questions?
That was Western Illinois
questions going into the game. Like, what do you want to see from Penn State, And I was going to talk after you tell me. I was just trying to think over the years, regardless whether if it was out of conference or in conference, what are like the 2 or 3 things that always give Penn State's defense trouble? I'll let you marinate on that. But what are some of the? I have a couple thoughts. But what are some of the questions for you in this game?
The thing that always gives any team that's physically superior sometimes trouble is a running quarterback. I don't know that Drew Plitt is necessarily that.
Right. He's a mobile quarterback, maybe not a running quarterback.
Right. They're not necessarily, because it gives you a hat on a hat if you have a running quarterback, and it gives you a chance to succeed. The other thing is normally Penn State doesn't. We've gone through a few years here where Penn State did not have a secondary this good.
Yeah.
Where they didn't really have what you would call a shutdown corner. Man, I think they've got a couple of them this year, don't you?
Yeah. Amani was kind of like that, but maybe not quite as good as these two. Amani Arowarie.
Yeah. Well, these two are really, really good.
Yes.
And plus, I noticed something about Brisker. That even did you go back and watch the video?
Yeah.
Joel Klatt and Gus missed who got that tackle to say. You remember the what would have been a 33-yard touchdown run where Ches Malusi.
That wasn't on the late drive. You're talking about earlier in the game.
Earlier in the game, yeah. Remember when Ches Malusi just needed to get one more step and he was barely tripped up.
Yeah.
They thought Ellis Brooks made the tackle, and he was working to get over there. He was being helped. Yeah. But he was not the one who made the tackle.
Was it Jair?
Jaquan Brisker saved that touchdown. So on top of everything else he did, he barely got he had to dive to get just an arm on Malusi's shin, or he's out to shoot, and that is absolutely a touchdown. There was nobody in front of him. You couldn't really see on TV, but we saw it live, and the whole crowd went, "Ooh!" Yeah. And that was again Brisker for all the other things he did, going in and out of the game 3 times. The plays at the end, he had a hell of a game. So all considered, this secondary is really impressive so far.
A couple things about Brisker. Obviously, it's his ability to anticipate plays, because he on the interception on the 4th down, he came from across the field to sniff that out. That little stick nod. His range, his ability to hit, his ability to run, his ability to tackle solidly. But on the other side of the ledger, Dave, he's already kind of beat up. You mentioned the fact he left the game 3 times. He was riding the bicycle. You saw it. You pointed it out to me on the sideline a couple of times after he left the game. But after the game, he had, I think, a giant harness or an ice pack. I think it was on his left shoulder. The only reason I bring that up is, when you get a little dinged up early in a Big Ten season, that has a way of catching up to you once you start, knocking heads with some of the more physical teams in the conference. Auburn's coming up in a couple of weeks. I hope whatever was ailing Jaquan is something that can kind of go away. But you just wonder, man, it was really an incredible performance, not only talent-wise, but the resolve that he showed and the grit that he showed. I just hope that it's not, these issues are not going to surface, on a regular basis.
Well, there's different reasons that you're on the bike. Sometimes there's cramps. Sometimes you just want to keep warm until you feel like you can go back in. I think this was the latter. The first time he went out 3 different times. Yeah. I did see them playing around with his calf. So on one of those occasions, so I asked him if he had cramps, but I don't really. The first time he went out, he put his body in front of. Right. I guess I'm not sure if it was Malusi or the other kid, number 30.
Guerrero or whatever his name was.
Yeah, he got slammed, man. That was
might have been an upper body.
Yeah, that was a really tough hit. And he's fearless. So I think you're right, and they need that defense to get as much rest as possible. That's why I don't think it's wise to start putting the ball up, no matter how vulnerable this secondary or the back 7 is. They need minutes out of that offense. Long, boring drives, dominate the ball. Yeah. I would almost onside kick and try to get it back to see if this defense can play about 9 minutes. That would be optimum. And
I just think you want to score as quickly as possible, and then when you kind of have the lead, then you do what you just said.
Well,
you got to get the lead first.
I want to see balance out of the offense anyway.
Yeah.
And this should be an opportunity, at least for the offense, to gain that balance, gain experience and confidence in different parts of the offense. Because you need balance to win any game. Why not work on balance all the time? I think that's probably the whole for this game, that's the object.
Yeah. So to circle back to what I said earlier, the things that have really hurt Penn State's defense since James has been there and Brent Pry, you mentioned one of them. He doesn't have to be a running quarterback. He's got to be a mobile quarterback who's accurate and can extend plays, maybe without not getting up the field, but buying time for guys to get open. It's the combination of that, plus you have to have some receivers that are a little bit dangerous. When Penn State has to deal with that, they're usually pretty good against the run. When they have to deal with like extended time and plays down the field, you look at last year, Indiana and Michael Penix, when the defense got tired, Justin Field and what he did in week 2 with Olave and Garrett Wilson, he didn't run the ball down the field a lot, but he extended a lot of plays. And then even, Dave, even in week 3, I always mess his name up, the Maryland quarterback, Tagovailoa and Jarrett, he didn't run a lot, but he was kind of getting out of trouble, and Jarrett killed them. So those two things combined always give Penn State trouble. They give everyone trouble, right? But I don't know that Ball State can do that on offense. I saw that in their first game. It was more about their running game that was kind of what allowed them to separate from Western Illinois. Maybe they held some things back, but if they think they're gonna line up and just run the ball against Penn State's front seven, I think it could be a pretty long day for the visitors.
Yeah, you never know what a team's attitude is going to be from a little school like this until you see them.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're a little bit apprehensive. Sometimes they just they've got a low gas factor, which is give a what.
Yeah.
And that's great. I mean, I remember seeing Appalachian State at Michigan when they won. Do you remember that little quarterback? I can't remember his name, but he just did not care. Right. And if Ball State comes in with that kind of attitude, look out, because I don't care what James Franklin or the rest of the coaches say. They know they just went through Wisconsin, and they know they're going through Auburn next week. They want this to be a little bit of a siesta. And if they go in with that kind of attitude, and Ball State has the attitude I described, that's just the way football is. It's a game of emotion and connectivity to each other. And if you're not quite there, man, it's a big drop down. So this is a potential trap game. It just is, even though it shouldn't be.
Yeah. I would agree with that, Dave. The guys that we always do something for Penn Live where when we make our pick, we kind of have a category that's, the player on the spot. We do some other things. To me, it's 5 players on the spot. It's
mine too. Yeah.
The offensive line this week.
That's what I picked. That's who I picked.
Yes, they had a huge task ahead of them last week against Wisconsin. And yes, I think the crowd noise got to them a little bit early. They did adjust. But there's two positions in particular that I'll be watching. Obviously, left guard is one, because I think that Eric Wilson is going to be the starter this week. And I thought that Rasheed Walker didn't play as bad as some people thought he did. They gave up that pressure early, but that was a stunt that he passed the guy off, and it might have been Wiggins. Somebody let that guy free through the middle of the field. The guy that I thought struggled was Caden Wallace at right tackle. I thought there were some times he just got beat, and I think he's a guy that they really like. I'm going to be watching Wallace, and I'm going to be watching Wilson this week. But those 5 guys, if you want to run the ball, if you want to make life easier for the passing game, if you want to control the clock and you want to keep your defense off the field, you got to get a big step forward from that offensive line. I think there's no question they're going to have a size and athleticism advantage up front. And at some point, you're right, they're going to have to string together. I know they want to score points. I know they want to get big plays, but at some point they're going to have to string together some drives, chew the clock, and make life a lot easier for a defense that they still have to be tired from what happened in Cameron.
Yeah, and it's not just the defense. This is like getting a pitcher work in the minors, or getting a boxer work and carrying a fighter into later rounds against a subpar opponent in between big fights.
A tomato can?
A tomato can. Yeah, well, I'm not calling Ball State a tomato can. I know. But they're physically inferior for a reason. They got recruited by MAC schools on the line for a reason. There's the biggest difference between primo programs and group of 5 programs is always on the line. I mean, think about the Memphis team that we saw in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, their skill players could go with anybody. They could have played with anybody in the country. And I told you that before the game. I said, these guys are going to score points. But what they couldn't stand up to, and when Penn State quit screwing around on offense and just started running the ball, I mean, that's Memphis, let alone Ball State. I mean, that's an American Athletic Conference program, which among the group of 5 is the best league. They couldn't begin to stand up to even Penn State's offensive line, which was not like necessarily one of the better ones in 2019, even in the Big Ten. But that's the difference between Power 5 and group of 5 programs. They need to get work for all facets of the offense. These guys need to get work and confidence just as much as the defense needs rest. So for all of those reasons, I say the more snaps, the better for Penn State's offense from beginning to end. They need work and they need time to mesh and get everyone up to speed, because they were only on the field 17 minutes in Madison. That's ridiculous.
This is some serious Penn State football talk here on the Blue White Breakdown, Penn Live's Penn State football podcast. He's Dave Jones. He just took a big gulp of coffee, I believe. I think it was coffee. Hopefully it wasn't gin, Dave. It's a little too early for that. I'm Bob Flounders. It was a coffee mug, but you could put a lot of different stuff in your coffee mug, and I won't get into all that. I know.
Well, I like Vicodin.
We were you and Brett Favre both.
No, that was you remember? Did you ever see The Martian?
Yeah.
The movie The Martian. Yeah. Remember when he doesn't have anything left except for his stupid potatoes, and he has no ketchup. And he's going, I'm going to put this in some crushed Vicodin, and there's nobody that can stop me.
Is that Matt Damon?
Yeah. A really good book too. I'm Facebook friends with the author, and who's a former gearhead and engineer who actually wrote his first book. It's a terrific book.
Speaking of Matt Damon, Dave, what do you think of Noah Cain? No, I'm just kidding.
Good transition.
It's a little
I like the way you did that.
I like to kind of compare current Penn State players to former Penn State players. I still don't have a comparison for him. He's been, we've only seen him for stretches at a time. We haven't really seen him for a full season. His second half, I thought, was very impressive against Wisconsin.
I told you my comparison before. I told you a couple of years ago.
I'm listening.
You didn't quite buy it because you didn't think it was quite the same body type. But
you said Tony Hunt?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
I think when you said that, I'm like, I know there was a Tony Hunt comparison to somebody. Yeah. So I took a shot and I was right. So
Tony Hunt was a little taller, I think. Wasn't he 6 feet?
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
But the muscularness of, that's not even a word, of both of them. I mean, they are both tough. That was a very impressive. It wasn't within camera view until they showed the replay. But that 2-yard run for the touchdown was typical Noah Cain. He ran through about 3 guys and kept churning. He can do both that, but he can also jump cut. He can do little moves. I mean, that's a value. I think he could be a valuable guy if they can just keep him healthy. If he can keep healthy, he can be really, really good. And Tony Hunt was really, really good.
He was. I agree with you on Noah. I think his leg drive and his quickness stand out to me, but he also, he had, you saw the whole skill set there. I mean, he caught all 5 of his targets. He can run through tackles. He can make people miss. He had a nice blitz pickup on Clifford's touchdown throw to Jahan Dotson.
He can not only make people miss, but when people get him, he can drag them and run away from them. He did that twice in big situations.
I think he is a legit NFL caliber back. I know Tony Hunt played in the NFL for a little bit, but I think I just wanted to get your take on him, because I'm going to ask you, who's the guy on offense you think is going to have a big game Saturday as we get closer to making our pick?
Well, because you would think they could get a lead here, and they probably want to save Noah Cain. They know what Noah Cain can do.
Yeah.
And they probably don't want to play him a hell of a lot, assuming they can get a lead. Kevon Lee, I think, is motivated. He knows he's not the number one guy, but he probably thinks he's the number one guy.
Sure.
And the couple of runs where he got caught behind the line of scrimmage and kept
about
fighting.
6 tackles.
Yeah. I mean, that shows me this kid's ready to play. That might have been the most impressive 3-yard loss I think I've ever seen. It was really, so they got back stacked like cordwood in this program, and I think that guy looks really motivated to me. So assuming he can get 15 or 20 carries maybe later in the game, I would watch out for him.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Parker Washington. I think that, like I said, Mike Will is mindful of the need to get the running game going and kind of, possess the ball. But I also think he's going to try and do some things early. I do think when Penn State goes quick, it's a problem. It's a problem for other teams when they get in rhythm, because who do you defend? If you can pass block for Clifford and give him a good look down the field, who do you want to take away? Is it Dotson? Is it Parker Washington? Keandre Lambert-Smith did some good things against Wisconsin. They still haven't really neither of the tight ends have caught a pass yet. They were targeted, but those guys can be dangerous too, especially Theo Johnson. You mentioned Noah Cain and Lee. When they go quick, they're a problem. I think you will see some elements of that, because I think that's something that makes them very dangerous. And I think it makes life a lot easier for Sean Clifford. I think he just gets the ball out quick too. And instead of pulling it down and looking, and I think it actually simplifies things for Sean. So I'm going to say Parker Washington's going to have the big day in the passing game, but it would not surprise me at all if you're right about Kevon Lee, because he is, and I'm telling you, he's every bit of 240, but he's so he's kind of tall, so it doesn't look like he's as big as he is. I'm just using this as a comparison in terms of size, not ability. But Eric Dickerson was a big guy, but he almost looked a little lanky out there because he was so tall.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, we got a couple minutes to do picks. I want to do some picks. Come on.
All right. Well, you got to be.
What's your pick? What's your pick on Penn State-Ball State?
Yeah, I'm gonna say 33-17 Penn State. Like I said, I'm looking for Parker Washington, and I'm going to be watching the offensive line. I just don't have a great read on Ball State, but I do know that those corners can make life, I think, very tough for Hall. So I wonder how many points they're going to be able to score on Penn State's defense.
All right, so you've got Ball State covering. I do too, because the line's 22.5.
Yep.
I've got it 31-14. Okay, quickly through the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Illinois, Virginia, at Virginia. What do you make the line?
I haven't seen Virginia play at all. I don't
know who they are.
Yeah, I know who they are. I'm going to say Virginia is a 4-point favorite.
Oh, 11.5.
Well, I don't know how they've done this year. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I don't know whether they're back. I just don't. I'm not betting Illinois on the road.
All right. Well, you know these two, Oregon and Ohio State. That's
yeah. Our old friend Joe Moorhead in the spotlight in this game.
Could be interesting.
They have some really good athletes on that team.
Yeah.
The scary thing, Dave, is I just feel like we only saw the best of Ohio State for 30 minutes on the road. What happens if they look like that for 60? I just think this has to. If Oregon's going to win, they're going to have to win a shootout, because Ohio State's going to score. I'm sure
they could. So what's
I'm sure Ohio State's about a 15-point favorite.
They are 14.5. Yeah.
I would say I would just bet whatever the over is. Quite honestly, I just think
it's 63. Okay.
I think it sails over. It sails over.
That makes sense to me. And I do not. I still don't trust Ohio State's secondary.
Right.
To me, they didn't look very good against Minnesota.
Yeah. And Moorhead will go after them with those.
Yeah, he will. Yeah, he will. Oregon survived against Fresno State 31-24. And by the way,
I think Fresno State's pretty good.
Yeah, I think they're very good. And look out for UCLA in 2 weeks. They've got a bye. They're going to be getting backpats for 2 weeks, and then they play Fresno State. Watch that game. It's like a 10:30 start in a week and a half.
A Chip Kelly, James Franklin Rose Bowl. Can we dare to dream?
Rutgers at Syracuse in the
unair. It's a no-brainer, Dave. It's Schiano all the way. It's a no-brainer. I'm on the Schiano bandwagon. I'm behind you on it. You're driving it. But I'm not going to pick against him.
What's the line?
At Syracuse?
Yeah, and you haven't looked at any of these, right?
I have not. Okay. I'm going to say Rutgers is 3-point favorite.
They're getting 2, so you're up with Rutgers on that, right?
Yeah.
Here's a hideous.
I'm brainwashed now. Way to go.
I've got you.
You got me.
Here is a truly hideous game. Purdue at Connecticut. Who the hell signed this up?
So, yeah.
What are you doing? What? Why?
What's that line about 49? Like, what do you make that line?
Connecticut's like that fake school in Columbus.
Yeah.
I think
Sycamore.
God.
Yeah.
And the coach Edsel just quit. Yeah, I mean they've already kind of announced they're headed for dissolving D1A football. Purdue is minus 34 on the road. Find that somewhere between 2 Division I teams.
I'd lay the points.
Could you find that anywhere between two Division I teams? I doubt it. I seriously doubt it.
All right, give me one more. We got to get out of here.
It's perfect for you. Buffalo at Nebraska.
You said Leopold's out of there?
Yes.
I'm going to say Nebraska's an inflated 12-point favorite, and I would take Buffalo in the points.
You're not making any friends back in your old stomping ground.
Well, I'm not from Nebraska, so I can afford to take some shots.
13.5. Okay. This is the last one, I promise, because it's a good game. Iowa at Iowa State.
Iowa. Iowa. That surprised me how easily they beat Indiana. I know that Iowa State's good. I like the coach. Is it a game at Iowa?
At Iowa State. At Ames.
Yeah, Iowa State's probably a 3-point favorite. I think I like them to win the game and cover.
Iowa?
No, Iowa State.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I disagree with you there. Okay. That's all the good games. So we'll leave it at that.
Let's just see how we do next week. I'm really going to be watching Schiano because,
Wait a minute. One more. This is it. Washington at Michigan.
You've got problems. I don't know what to make of that Michigan effort last week. They're good when they can bully somebody, man. They're really
that's what
really
they do.
Yeah. I don't know that they're going to bully Washington. I'm sure Michigan is 7.5, something like that, more than a touchdown.
Correct. There's 7. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take the points in Washington.
Yeah, I think they're going to get Washington's best effort. I don't know if you knew this, but Washington lost to Montana last week.
Well, it's even better if they beat Michigan outright.
I know. It'll be great for the Big Ten. I think it'll be great for them. All right.
That's it for this edition of the Blue White Breakdown. We picked about 47 games, and you guys don't really know the Penn State pick.
Hey, it's fun. It's
fun. He's Dave Jones. I'm Bob Flounders. We'll be at the game on Saturday, and then we'll talk to you a couple times next week.
See you, everyone.